Do you remember Stefan Fischer, that YouTuber who got sued back in May of last year by a company called Deep Cycle Systems? Well, that case was playing itself out and has been for the past 9 months in the District Court of Queensland, and 2 days ago on the 11th, it was dismissed. So this is a victory for the good guys, dude. And like me, I'd suggest that your heart should be as heavy as a field of frickin' butterflies in spring. Because in our society, the good guys don't always win, and quite often the scumbags win. And I would argue that this is a real case of victory for freedom of speech, victory for independent reviews on YouTube. So if you're a consumer of not just 4x4 crap, but any product, and you watch reviews on YouTube and you want to make sure that everything is done to ensure that those reviews are as independent as possible, then this is a real victory for all of that. So I want to lay out exactly what has just happened and the statement from Mr. Fischer that he made on the 11th, which is extremely grateful. And then I want to tell you about why this really matters, because there's a salient lesson in all of this for anyone who's thinking about suing anyone who, for the simple reason that they're a bit butthurt over what was said about them. Because I would argue that our defamation laws don't exist to stop people from having their feelings hurt. I'd suggest that they exist to protect people from serious damage to their reputation flowing from very unfair assaults in the public domain. Like, free speech is great, but it can't be absolute. You can't just randomly call someone a pedophile and hope to get away with it, right? Because allegations such as that, if you amplify them enough and other people buy into them, even in the absence of proof, they can ruin people's lives, right? So that's why we need defamation laws. But unfortunately, it seems to me, they keep getting used by people and entities just as a de facto kind of mechanism to gag people when some rich dude really just doesn't like what is said. So anyway, here's what happened. It's kind of interesting. Mr. Fischer owns this business called All Off-Road 4x4 Adventures, right? And he raised concerns about Deep Cycle Systems, which is also called DCS, and their lithium-ion batteries and the performance of those, which he tested and reviewed under the bonnet of his 4x4. I think if memory serves, he used the batteries as sort of cold cranking batteries to start the engine, which DCS said they were kind of designed to do, which is lovely, okay? But he wasn't that glowing in his review, and he basically found that they didn't perform as well as he would like and didn't think they were that suitable for off-road applications, etc. And I have no knowledge. I've spoken to Mr. Fischer several times, but I don't know whether his review was on the money or not. I don't know whether the testing was really robust and like weapons-grade objective testing or reasonably poor. I have no way of knowing, okay? I'm leaning on the side that it wasn't too bad. You know, having spoken to Mr. Fischer, I would categorise him as somebody with integrity who cares about what he does and tries to do the right thing. So I think I at least give him full points for that, because that's rare enough in our society as well, right? Anyway, DCS alleged that these reviews were defamatory, malicious, and caused them to lose sales and money and important things of this nature. And I have to tell you that honest personal opinion is a defence against defamation, being sued for defamation. This review, this video, is my honest personal opinion, and I will reference facts like things that happen, such as the court determination. But when I'm drawing conclusions here, it's just my honest personal opinion, okay? It's my honestly held view, and you would have to take that in context. I'm not going to represent that everything I say is a fact. If I say the court found this, it's a fact. If I say I think blah, it's an opinion, right? Hopefully an informed one, but that's up to you to determine. Anyway, this business about thinking that Mr. Fischer's reviews were defamatory, malicious, and cause them to lose sales, I think that's a smokescreen, right? Personal opinion, it's a smokescreen kind of thing. And I think it really just means there was some tantrum of some magnitude And then we sicked the lawyers onto Mr. Fischer, hoping that he would just shut up and get a bit, come away with his nose a bit bloody, whereas in fact the exact opposite has happened, okay? Suffice it to say that I just went to Mr. Fischer's channel and his videos on this stuff reached a small number of people. I think the first one was like 10,000 views when he said, hey, I'm going to test this. And then his conclusory one that said, I didn't think they were that good and I'm going back to lead acid. That's the one I found anyway. And it's had like 57,000 views. Now, 10,000 people and 57,000 people, they're not a tiny number of people. It's a decent crowd at the footy or something, but it's not exactly interstellar YouTube success, is it? It's a small number of viewers in a, let's be frank, Antipodean shithole called Australia. So put that in context. Hold that thought, dude, because that's going to be important later. After 9 months, right, since May last year and hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees, lawyers love this stuff, on both sides, right, because it's not free for DCS to bring this action against Mr. Fischer, right? On the 11th of March, just a couple of days ago, in an 11-page judgment, which is quite a small judgment as court judgments go. They mean often whole forests are just desecrated producing a single court judgment. But this one's just 11 pages. The case got thrown out on a technicality, okay? And the technicality is that DCS is ineligible to sue Mr. Fischer for defamation. Under Australian defamation law, companies with fewer than 10 employees can sue for defamation, but generally other companies can't, okay? Larger corporations, you've got more than 10 employees, including contractors, you can't sue for defamation. And if you're a small sort of company and you've got an associated corporate entity, which is a legal technicality, you also cannot sue for defamation. So it's on these bases that the judgment was handed down and the case was dismissed. Nobody wearing a wig ever looked into, did Mr. Fischer defame DCS? They didn't get that far because the case got thrown out on this technicality. The burden of proof falls to DCS, the plaintiff in this case, to prove that they don't have associated entities and to prove that they have fewer than 10 employees. And the court found that on the balance of probability, they failed to do that. And the court also did not find the boss of DCS all that credible as a witness. Go figure. Apparently, he's got these two companies, DCS and another company you've never heard of called Energy Tech Electronics, and apparently they claimed that they have factories in Ukraine and China, but they told the court they don't own them. And I don't know how you have a factory without owning it. That seems mutually, exclusive to me. Apparently, there was some claim that they had a person named Michelle on the payroll, and then it came to light that apparently Michelle is just an AI-generated persona chat thing designed to put dissatisfied customers in their box. So that seems misrepresentative to me, and I think the judge found it that way also. It makes me wonder how many dissatisfied customers you'd have to have, right, to actually go to the trouble of developing an AI response system to put these people in their box. Fewer than one every month or so. I'd say you wouldn't need AI, would you? If it was just once in a frickin' blue moon, you'd respond personally. You'd say, hey, dude, you'd ring them up. You'd say, how can I help you? Are you not happy with our product? I'm sorry to hear that. If you need AI to deal with dissatisfied customers, it seems to me you probably have quite a few of those. Go figure. So both of these businesses, DCS and Energy Tech Electronics, they have the same director, okay, and they operate from the same address. The director claims that they are completely separate entities. DCS operates from a shed on the property, while the Energy Tech one operates from a spare room, for example. They've got separate accounting systems allegedly as well. Apparently, though, each company lends money to the other and the director from time to time, and one cross-promotes the other on its website. And the director incurs expenses for both entities on his personal credit card, and he only reconciles those annually, but allegedly, right, they're just not associated entities. And the judge had a real problem with that, okay? DCS also owns this shitbox Land Rover, and I'm not suggesting that their Land Rover is particularly a shitbox, just that on the balance of probability, it's a Land Rover. Ergo, it's a shitbox. So, and a trailer. Shitbox Land Rover and a trailer, and it lends the DCS rolling disaster to Energy Tech from time to time, but they're not associated entities, okay? You get the picture here about how this is rolling. There's misrepresentative statements being made to the court which put a dent in the director's credibility in the eyes of the judge, and he found that the company failed to prove that it was not one of these excluded entities which would be entitled to sue for defamation. So the ruling is that DCS can't sue for defamation, but they can appeal the decision, okay? They've got 30 days until I think it's I'm going to say the 10th of April to commence that appeal if they decide to go that way. But in my view, they'd have to be flat out insane to do such a thing. It's not off the cards though, you know, they might do that. Anyway, Mr. Fischer had reasonable success on GoFundMe getting the funds to defend his position in this lawsuit which just fell over, and he issued a statement which I think was approved by his lawyer. He issued that on the 11th, and I'm going to read it to you so you know exactly what Mr. Fischer has to say here. The heading is "We won, case dismissed." Pretty happy about that, obviously. And Mr. Fischer says, I'm quoting, "Today, the District Court of Queensland dismissed Deep Cycle Systems defamation claim against me in Deep Cycle Systems versus Fischer, QDC 25, QDC for Queensland District Court. The court ruled that DCS is not an excluded corporation under Queensland law, meaning they lack the standing to sue for defamation. Under the heading of key court findings, Mr. Fischer says the judgment highlighted two critical issues. First, that DCS failed to prove they have fewer than 10 employees. During the relevant period, financial records showed unexplained R&D expenditures and intercompany loans, undermining their claim of independence. And second, the court criticised DCS director Marek Unpronounceable's credibility. And I'm calling him unpronounceable because I don't want to mangle his name. Okay, it's one of these Eastern Bloc type WICZ''S names. Criticised his credibility, noting his admitted mistruths, including fabricating ownership stakes and using a fake employee named Michelle to mislead clients. The judge concluded his testimony required corroboration due to a pattern of deception. Next steps. This is still Mr. Fischer's statement. DCS has 30 days until the 10th of April 2025 to appeal. Even if they don't, we must pursue separate court proceedings to recover legal costs, a process which may take months. Submissions for costs are due in late March and April, with final replies by the 7th of April. While timelines are uncertain, the hardest battle in validating their standing is won. So that's great, okay? Mr. Fischer goes on under the heading of "Thank you, this victory is ours." He says, "I owe this outcome to an incredible network of supporters. My deepest gratitude to my legal team, PK Cruzas." I spoke to Mr. Cruzas yesterday and he sent me the official judgment, which had not yet been published. I also spoke to Robert Pepper on that and he sent me the judgment too, which was very kind. So thanks, Robert. Thanks for being a real engineer on YouTube. PK was a very nice bloke also, and he gave me some detail because he knew that I'd been a supporter of Mr. Fischer. He's from Net Counsel Lawyers. If you ever get sued for defamation, I think he'd probably be a very helpful chap. Good guy to have in your corner in the ring. In addition to thanking PK, Stefan goes on and says he's thanking his barrister, Justin Castellan, whose expertise guided me through this gruelling process. And he goes on and says, to Australian advocates like John Cadogan, who I can tell you, because I've known him for my entire life, is a bit of an arsehole, but sometimes he's helpful, you know, occasionally mildly entertaining. That's me talking, not Mr. Fischer. To Australian advocates like me and EEV blog Dave Jones and Australian 4x4 Adventures and quite a few more, your platforms amplified this fight and rallied communities. Speaking for myself only, you're very welcome, Stefan. Your matter deserved oxygenation and I'm happy to help, as I'm sure are all the YouTubers who got on board, both large and small, and mentioned here and not. Okay, Mr. Fischer goes on and says, to global allies like Louis Rossmann and Will Prowse, whose solidarity inspired thousands to stand against corporate overreach, and to the 1,873 GoFundMe donors, sharers and countless creators worldwide, you turned this legal battle into a movement. While I can't name everyone, he says, know that every contribution, big or small, makes this possible. What next? Any surplus funds will go to the Royal Flying Doctor's Service as promised, which is awesome. And this speaks to Mr. Fischer's character in my estimation also, because he's not profiteering on this. Anything extra, he's given it away. And he's giving it away to an organisation that really deserves it, and which helps the kinds of people who would have been on the GoFundMe and watching those other 4x4 channels as well as Mr. Fischer's, right? A detailed breakdown of the judgment will follow in mid-April once I return to Australia. He's overseas at present. Final words, he says, I believe the judgment can be downloaded via the Queensland Court's website. It couldn't at the time I looked yesterday, but it might be up now, who knows. Mr. Fischer concludes by saying, you proved community outweighs corporate bullying. To fellow creators, keep speaking the truth. This win is ours. With immense gratitude, Stefan. So, congratulations, Stefan. This, although a victory on a technicality, is extremely worthwhile, and I think we're going to take whatever victories we can get in this domain, because my estimation is there has been a war on the freedom of speech, both in Australia and in other places around the world currently, and this is a real victory for that. And what I want to do is conclude with a final statement that is my personal opinion, which is essentially a warning to egomaniacal dickheads with money who think that it might be a good idea to sue somebody when they talk about your product in a less than glowing light and you just don't like it. That's not what defamation law is for, but it's what it's being used for. The happy result here is that it can backfire, so spectacularly, right? And it really has backfired here. And this is the true cost to DCS for proceeding in what I would categorise as this extremely ill-advised way. Now you have to remember that the court has not determined whether or not DCS was defamed by Mr. Fischer. They didn't get that far, okay? But Mr. Fischer's review where he said, I'm going back to lead acid because I didn't like the way these batteries behaved and performed in some ways, right? And I think he was pretty measured about it, but anyway, 57,000 views, okay? Louis Rossmann picked this up and he eviscerated DCS. Like, the sword went in, and it went in a long way, and it was Kill Bill because it kept going in. The first video, 1.4 million views. Ladies and gentlemen, 1.4 million. 57,000 for Mr. Fischer, Louis Rossmann eviscerating DCS. 1.4 million views. His second video, Mr. Rossmann's second video, and he is quite entertaining when he gets worked up, 1 million views. So there's 2.4 million views, bringing to light some fascinating information that would not have otherwise been uncovered, some federal government determinations about the performance of DCS batteries. They were bad in this particular document, which I also reviewed on the back of Mr. Rossmann's uncovering it. 2.4 million views versus 57,000 initially. Like, Will Prowse, he was pretty damning about the way the batteries are built too. 994,000 views. So let's just call it a lazy million, all right? That's 3.4 million right there. Duos creators, 3.4 million views, which would never have happened had DCS not sued Mr. Fischer in the first place. This is the problem of amplification for DCS, right? It's a consequence of their conduct. This widespread global amplification of their status as a corporation in what I would categorise as the most negative light. Like, come on. Australian 4x4 adventurers who did their first video got 112,000 views. Not bad. Roughly twice as many as Mr. Fischer's first video. I've gone back to lead acid. And their follow-up, which was a confrontation of sorts with DCS, 117,000 views, which is pretty nearly double again the number of views Mr. Fischer enjoyed. Okay? Dave Jones over at Double EV blog or EEV blog, whatever you call it, 93,000 views there. So roughly double the initial views of the video. And these are cumulative, right? They're all adding up. My videos, my initial one got 155,000 views, which is kind of roughly 3 times Mr. Fischer's first video, going back to lead acid. And when I followed up on the findings of Mr. Rossman's video, 211,000 more views. So what's that? 4 times what Mr. Fischer's going back to lead acid kind of generated. The total is, let's call it 4 million views. If you throw in the smaller channels, it's got to be 4 million views. It's got to be 57,000 over here versus 4 million views. This is the cost of taking this action. This is not Mr. Fischer doing this. This is the cost that DCS is paying for doing this conduct, right? For behaving in this way. And I would argue that this is the most expensive thing that's going to happen to them. Like, when you click on their Facebook page, the link on their website to their Facebook page, you just get the default screen that this content has been taken down. It's like a 404, not found, not up. We can't afford to have this live. I'm inferring this is they can't afford to have this live because there would have been a pile-on in the comments. And let's face it, Facebook is full of snow white boomers going 4x4 adventuring, stroking their beards with their crocodile teeth in their friggin' hat, dude. Facebook is where they get information. It's where they have discussions about, do you like those batteries or not, right? And it tells me something that's taken down, right? And it's not good for DCS if you have to take down your Facebook, right? Their YouTube link on their webpage, at least when I clicked on it yesterday, like when I tested their Facebook link, it directs to some person, Paul unpronounceable, with the same unpronounceable as the director referenced in the court documents. I don't know if it's the same person or not. The person in the court documents is called Marek. This is called Paul. Anyway, the YouTube page is 584 subscribers, not 584,000, 584, and 12 videos, the most recent of which was 6 years ago. So I'm inferring that if they had an official YouTube channel, they've taken it down as well. I don't get it. I kind of get it, but paying this sort of cost is ridiculous because you didn't like what somebody said about your battery in a video that's only been viewed 57,000 times and might have only been watched for, I don't know, 3 minutes average view duration. If that's not enough, there's the thorny issue of costs. Now, I'm not going to commit some act of contempt of court, but I will speculate that if Mr. Fischer's team is successful in applying for costs and DCS has to pay their costs, like Mr. Fischer's costs, plus their own costs, the total bill for lawyers in all of this is probably going to be north of $250,000. So let's get this straight. You had this video that you didn't like, right? And because of the actions that you took around that, the community backlash has been extreme, and you went from like roughly 60,000 views to roughly 4 million views, and the subsequent 4 million was just so negative that you had to pull back out of Facebook and probably YouTube as well, and then glacé cherry on the icing on the freaking cake of the knee in the nuts that is happening to DCS at the moment, they might have to fund $250,000 in legal fees if unsuccessful in defending an application for costs, right? That's extreme. And like the Bruce Lerman case and like the war criminal case, I forget the guy's name off the top of my head. It's in here somewhere, but I can't dredge it up. One of you will be able to tell me in the chat, doubtless. But anyway, like like these matters where someone launches a defamation action against someone else and it backfires spectacularly. Lerman went back into the ring, went back into the lion's den for his hat, unquote. Like after escaping the lion, he went back for the hat and it just shot him in the nuts. And the war criminal, on the balance of probability, you can call him a war criminal now because he sued for defamation. If he'd just shut up, there would be no such finding, right? This is that. This is a trio, if you like, of high-profile defamation cases blowing up in the face of the plaintiff in the worst possible way. But it's not just blowing up, it's them having a negligent discharge and shooting themselves in the nuts. That's what this is. And like I said earlier, my heart is just as heavy as a field of butterflies in friggin' spring over it, because defamation actions need to be reserved for, in my view at least, the most serious damage to somebody's reputation flowing from the most spurious and unfounded allegations that really do upend somebody's status in society, right? They're not just a de facto gag order that some rich person can pull out of his jocks and slap some YouTuber with because he hurt my feelings kind of thing. And increasingly that's what they're being used for. So anyway, victory for the good guys. You might want to just, you know, this Friday night, you're having a beer down the pub, you might just want to have a quiet one because the good guys won this week. And that does not always happen, dudes. So this is me multitasking now, figuring out how to sign off and clicking the button at the same time as talking to you. And as you know, men don't have the circuitry for that. If he wants to see excellence in that, you have to see a chick in action, which you will never see on this channel. But anyway, thank you for sticking with me for this report. I'm overjoyed at this result, and congratulations, Stefan Fischer, PK, and the rest of the legal team. You did a great job, and it's a really good result for the good guys. So I'll take that. I'll check you next time.